evening. I call to order the Apple Valley Planning Commission meeting for November 15th, 2023. First order of business, approval of the agenda. Any changes from staff?
Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Commission, we would respectfully request that you move item 3A on the consent agenda down to item 6B. We'd like to address just a quick change or give you a couple of options for one of the planned meeting dates for 2024, please. Other than that, the agenda should stand as
Right.
presented.
That is noted. Any changes by the commission? Could I have a recommendation?
Move to approve?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Sandell and seconded by Commissioner Mahold. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Abstain.
That passes. The next item is the consent agenda, item number 3. We just noted one change to that, and the only thing on that this evening is approval of minutes from October 18th, 2023 regular meeting. Could I get a motion, please?
Move to approve the minutes of October 18th, 2023 regular meeting?
Second.
Brought forward by Commissioner Sandell and seconded by Commissioner Mahold. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Abstain.
Aye. That passes. We're going to move on to our next item. That's a public hearing, item number 4A. I have a brief statement before we open that. We will open the public hearing for agenda item 4A. The affidavit of publication for notice of public hearing is available for inspection in the planning department. Everyone wishing to speak to this public hearing should be sure to fill out the attendance roster with their names and addresses so that accurate records can be maintained. We'll begin the procedure with a brief presentation by city staff, followed by a presentation by the petitioner of the hearing. Upon the conclusion of the presentation, staff will be asked to comment on proposals in conformance with pertinent regulations and policies. After that, comments will be taken from the general public. Please come to the podium, speak, and address all comments and questions to the chair. Kathy Bodmore is presenting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mr. Chair, City Council, or Planning Commission members. The petitioner of this request actually is the City of Apple Valley, and it is a request to amend the ordinance that establishes or regulates plan development number 703, which is the Cobblestone Lake area. Cobblestone Lake neighborhood is located on the southeast corner of the city, roughly 300 acres. The property is all under a single plan development zone, PD 703, with several subzones within it for each individual different unique development. PD 703 was first established November 8, 2001, which according to my math is 22 years ago. Since that time, there have been 20 ordinances updating the PD. So we're just going back. We noticed a problem with there was an overlap with one of the ordinances, so we need to clean that up, and then we've got just some little minor things. Typographic errors, old citations, minor edit errors, reformatting, and as long as we're in there, we'd like to remove sand and gravel as part of the list of permitted uses. So first of all, with the typos, these are just 3 examples I pulled. Really small, but as long as we were in there, we decided to go ahead and make those corrections. The second was old citations. So in 2001, we were still using our smaller code book, the black book, and we had a different reference system for our various chapters. Anybody reading the code today, that would be kind of confusing. It doesn't relate to anything, so just updating that. One of the things that happened during the many edits and overwrites was that there was an edit error with the introductory paragraph of the code that needs to be corrected, so this would correct that problem. And over time, the setback standard table, the end of that has several notes and footnotes, and they've kind of been kind of haphazardly updated, so we're recommending kind of reformatting and just reorganizing, so that'll make that a little more clear. And then lastly, Cobblestone Lake is fully developed. Therefore, city staff is recommending that we remove sand and gravel and any and all ancillary uses related to that, excavation, hauling, mining, stockpiling, asphalt plants, get rid of all of that out of the code for now. So just kind of updating it and making it relevant for today. With that, Mr. Chair, staff recommends opening the public hearing, receiving comments, and closing the public hearing. The Planning Commission policy is to not take action on an item on the night of its public hearing. We have not received any negative feedback at all from the public on this, so we're not expecting issues. However, if the Planning Commission feels comfortable tonight that any outstanding issues or questions can be answered, then staff would be recommending approval of the ordinance. So with that, I can stand for questions if there are any.
I have one question, Kathy, on page 1, where it was talking about purpose. You're talking about various low, medium, high density.
Yes.
Would it be appropriate to put our latest, newest flex density into that mix too for this?
The hesitation that I had, attorney is shaking her head no. The hesitation that I would have is that each of the different criteria was set up for a specific development within Cobblestone.
Okay, yep.
And none were really set up for that flex.
All right, perfect.
So-
That answers my question there.
Okay.
And I think there's like 2 commercial properties left to be developed yet.
I think that's true too, Rick.
And there's still 1 lot for the single-family homes that hasn't been built on yet.
Okay.
Yeah. But
So,
that's
but it's
the only
very
ones I'm aware
nearly,
of. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
completely developed.
Okay.
So.
Any questions? Commissioner Sandell, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Kathy, minor questions. Should there be an Oxford comma after limited business?
Oxford comma.
Or is limited
This is
business
very
institutional?
controversial.
I used to be an English teacher, so I'm all about the Oxford
Yeah,
comma.
okay.
Anyway, just throwing that out there.
We could certainly make that change if it's clear. I would defer to the attorney.
Mr. Chair, have mercy on you. Yes, there should be a comment.
Thank you.
I don't know what our style format is, but yes, okay.
And my second question is just, what does it mean to have it reserved?
That just means there are no rules established for that particular zone, but we might come back and update it.
Perfect, just curious.
Yeah.
Was there anything from staff? Okay. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak to this? Okay. If there are no more questions from anyone, I'm going to close the public hearing. If there's no further comments, I will close the public hearing for item 4A. It is the policy of the Planning Commission not to act on an item on the same night as the public hearing. The Planning Commission will weigh all comments, information relative to tonight in its deliberation at further meetings. This item will continue to appear on further Planning Commission agendas until recommendations on the petition can be forwarded to the City Council. With that said, we do have the option to move forward and vote on this tonight, so what is the pleasure of the commission?
I would make a motion to recommend approval of the draft ordinance amending public, PD 703 Cobblestone Lake.
Second.
That was forwarded by Commissioner Mahold and seconded by Commissioner Schindler. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes, and that can move forward for you. So thank you, Kathy. The next item of business this evening is land use action items. The first is item 5A, the Wings Credit Union sign height and area variance, and Alex Sharp is going to be presenting.
Thank you, Chair. As noted, this is a sign height and area variance. Planning Commission reviewed this item on October 18th, where staff introduced the sign height variance. Upon additional review, which does happen to occur in between when we do two Planning Commission items, staff did find that an additional variance for the sign area would be required for this request. So the original variance was for a 12-foot variance to sign height, where the maximum sign height is 8 feet, and the applicant sought a 20-foot tall sign at 14985 Glacier. The second is for a 20 square foot variance to the maximum area allowed for a sign, where 60 square foot is permitted and 80 square feet is sought. As noted on the prior slide, this is at 14985 Glacier Avenue. This is the Wings Credit Union headquarters. The actual location of the sign is noted in that northeast corner. The site is zoned Plan Development 290. However, in PD 290, it refers back to the limited business sign code for all of its regulations, which is where the variance then refers to as well. This is a picture of the existing sign. And the applicant has updated some of the graphics, but none of their sign size changed or anything along those lines. It was just a better graphic that they felt better represented the sign and what they see it to look like in this area. As part of the 147th roadway realignment, they did also note that trees are going to be cleared around the site. Some of that would be needed due to the roadway alignment. Some of it needs to occur for the sign installation. The applicant has submitted this updated site plan. This is an updated site plan that was done actually by the city in conjunction with the applicant. It was what the site plan determines is that additional right-of-way along 147th will be needed, and it sought to find a location that was code compliant for the proposed sign. This was developed with the applicant and should be a location that works for both parties based upon the realignment of the roadway when that does occur. Just as a reminder, the application before the Planning Commission this evening is for sign height and sign size, not related to a setback. So that is why what is being shown here is just that 13-foot required. The revisions for a variance, I will go through them very, very briefly. Kind of in summary format, you do have a larger expanded version up before you on the screen and as part of your packet. Essentially, special conditions which need to exist, which are particular to the land. The special conditions need to not be the result of the applicant. A literal interpretation of the code needs to deny the applicant rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the district. The granting the variance would not confer any special privilege on the applicant, and the proposed variance will not have a adverse effect in appearance on adjacent properties. Number two, as I noted at the last meeting, is not applicable to this situation. In this case, staff has recommended findings. An expanded version of these is within your report. They go into fairly great detail due to the nature of staff recommending a denial of the variance. Up on the screen, I do have a very summarized version that I will go through and we can refer back to if you have questions. So staff's recommended findings are that there are not special conditions that relate to the sign height and size of the sign. The applicant has not presented those special conditions or any special conditions that would require additional size and height of a sign. The literal interpretation does not deprive them of anything commonly enjoyed by other properties within the district. There are no signs of this size within that district. There are no signs of this height within the district. The granting of the variance would confer a special privilege. Additional sign height and size are certainly an advantage in terms of signage. The type of uses that this district specializes in is office and professional office and oddly Fit Academy as well. And that is that style of sign works for all of those businesses within the area. The proposed sign height, and this one is a little bit more subjective in nature, just by the nature of the type of provision and code, but that it may have an adverse effect on neighboring properties, not due to its aesthetics, but due to the fact that it is so much larger and therefore would confer that advantage. When staff brought this forward at the last Planning Commission, we were seeking guidance on which way to go with this. I wasn't sure which way the Planning Commission was feeling at that meeting, and therefore what I've done is bring forward 4 different potential actions this evening. 2 in the recommendation of denial, if staff's recommendation is supported, though recognizing that the Planning Commission may see special conditions and all of the provisions, did include draft recommendations if you did want to make them in the approval. One note to the items that I do have underlined in both of these is that the Planning Commission should state their findings. I've provided draft ones for the denial because I couldn't come up with them on both ends, didn't provide them on the approval, and the Commission would need to provide some draft findings so that I could bring that forward to City Council. With that, I do believe that applicant is present this evening as well and could answer any questions. If you want to go back, I've failed to mention, I do have all the slides from the prior presentation as well with all the slides from signs from the district. So if you want to see any of those or if that would help in your discussion, just let me know.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Alex? Does the petitioner like to come up and?
Good evening. Tom Schenke, Wings Financial Credit Union, Vice President of Facilities and Administration. Last time we met, a month or so ago, I think we had some nice slides, and thank you, Alex, for offering those up. But what our goal is right here is to make prominent our building and our campus on that site. And I think I talked a little bit about the job market and being an attractive sort of a landmark location for the possible employees. We've gotten some more information since then. I have gotten some more information since then. In this year so far, to date, we've hired 250 people to work at Apple Valley. Now, that doesn't mean all 250 have stayed, because there's been a very high rate of turnover, people coming in and going out. And that's not, I don't think, a function of Wings. Wings is a very highly rated organization, but it's just the kind of the exemplary of the churn of employees that we get. Being prominent, having a good visible look at that intersection would be very helpful for us relative to hiring. It certainly doesn't hurt the credit union relative to being visible. And yes, I think everything Alex mentioned relative to the ordinance and the way it is written for that particular land use is correct. I wouldn't argue against city staff's findings at all. However, what I would argue against is that particular land use ordinance, the way it's written, really kind of puts us at a disadvantage compared to a lot of the retail locations around there. If you remember the slide deck we had, there was probably, I can stand at that spot in that corner, and I can see 8 signs that are 20 feet tall or 80 square feet or bigger. And I guess I don't think maybe that 290, whatever, A or whatever it is, maybe needs to be either updated or re-looked at. So, I mean, really, that's about the only thing I can bring forward. It's a sign that we'd like to have, and keep bringing people into Apple Valley.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Mr. Chair, and yeah, I don't really have a question. I just I understand where you're coming from. We have to go with what the ordinance currently is, you know. So I don't think that we are able to make a change to the. I know we can't make a change to the ordinance or anything.
Right.
So the fact that it's not I agree with the staff findings as well, and so I have a hard time overcoming that to approve a sign. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're here for the variance to the ordinance, so.
Commissioner Mahoney?
Not a question either, but just an observation. I do think that when you look at the current monument, it is dwarfed by the building behind it, and that's the difficulty. I also get the nature and the character of the signage in Plan Development 290, and you drive around and it is consistent with that. But the campus there at Wings Financial it's an impressive campus, and that particular sign, the current monument, doesn't really reflect that. You do have the rooftop signage, but you know, as I just drove down east on 147th Street this evening, you know, it's really dark back there. You get passed through the retail, and I get it. It's the different district on the west side of Cedar on 147th, and then the frontage there along Cedar as you continue east. But I don't know, and I agree that the conditions for a variance make it difficult to approve. Even though I think it could be a really nice benefit to the site and to the community, I think our hands are somewhat tied by the conditions in the ordinance to grant a variance. So it's a tough call for me on that, but because I do think that would add something to sort of, again, like you say, add some prominence to the building and to the business, and have a sign that is suitable for the campus that it promotes. So that's a tough call for me.
Sure. I might add to, part of this is in 2016, we purchased Commons 2. The building was in significant state of poor. It was really bad. We ended up gutting that building down to the beams, basically. We've gone through Commons 2, and of about 65,000 square feet, we've turned it into a showcase. We have a fully functioning fitness center in there. We have a full commons area for our staff, fireplaces and pool tables, and all sorts of things. All of the office spaces have been remodeled since 2017, and they're all state-of-the-art. We started working after we finished Commons 2. We started working on 14985 Glacier. We have 125,000 square feet of space in that building. Other than the 5th floor, which city attorney will be painfully aware of, we have not done any remodels to that area just yet, but we started there this year, but we've remodeled every other floor. Our branch is currently under remodel, and we'll be having a grand opening for our brand new branch coming in December. And the sign really that we're proposing really fits what's inside the building. I know we haven't changed the exterior of the building, but the inside is completely different. I think city staff would echo that. They were just on a recent on a tour. So we're trying to really boost our image. With gray stone buildings, sometimes they put forward a image of that's maybe not as popular to today's workforce, and we want to give them that image. We want to promote that this is a new and this is a vibrant organization, and that's where we're at.
Thank you.
Hmm?
Do any of the commissioners that haven't commented yet like to do so, or do you rather wait till after a vote?
I'll just,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I think I feel very similar to everyone else up here. I don't find that it meets the requirements for to grant the variance, and so as it is right now, that's just kind of the way it is. I'm sure you've looked at what a sign would look like if it met the requirements, and I wasn't at the first meeting that we had of this, so I didn't get to see those slides, but I don't know if you had an option that met the requirements, or.
We've looked at other options, yes.
So, I mean, I guess that's just where I am at with this.
Thank you, Commissioner Schindler.
If I just may ask, we have looked at other options. One of the biggest issues is the 8-foot maximum height. 8 foot is really not going to get us where we want to be. So anything that we would put forward to the commission is going to be falling into over 8 feet. 12 foot really as a minimum would probably be what we would be looking for. I mean, that probably takes us out of the 80 square foot size and puts us within 60. But we're still going to be 12 feet, and you're still going to be running against the same things that you're running against right now with the criteria. I don't know what the path forward is. If there's a way to modify the 290.
Chair, perhaps I can add some clarity. So the way that staff was made aware of this sign proposal was a variance application coming in, worked with the applicant, wanted to propose things, see where the commission was at. Depending upon where the commission was at, we even tried to see whether maybe a sketch plan might be helpful. We've kind of used this as kind of a sketch plan. So this wouldn't be a modification to PD 290, or there wouldn't be a modification to PD 290, but perhaps staff can work with the applicant on evaluating whether a sign ordinance would be appropriate. What I'm hearing from the commission is that perhaps that may be something the commission wants to look at. That can take a little bit of additional time because that's limited business, so it affects a significantly larger number of properties. But that is something staff could bring forward or work with the applicant on to actually amend the requirements within the limited business district to allow additional signs. At this time, the commission's acting on a variance application, just as staff was when we received that application coming in. That becomes a legal application that we have to process that application. Now that we're at this point, we've got that little bit of feedback, perhaps we can look at options for a different path. I'd defer to the city attorney if I've expressed that correctly, because I don't want to go out of line.
No, that helps out a lot, I think, Alex, to give us a little better vision to go forward, because we always, I think, pride ourselves in trying to find ways to make things happen and find that middle ground. And then we're also, this circumstance, it's pretty black and white where we're sitting. So I think that have a clear understanding we need to close out this and then look at what's the next stage from your perspective to allow
So Chair,
to work with the applicant.
the action the evening the planning commission would be acting on is this application.
Correct.
Outside of that, staff will contact and work with the applicant. We are always wanting to do that.
Sure.
It's just legal applications have a set path that we must take.
That's correct. So, okay, thank you, Alex. Commissioner Pruitt,
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to expand on the fact that it is a variance and reading through the 5 conditions that would allow for granting a variance. And I appreciate the description that's in the packet that was shared with the commissioners, that none of those are achieved really. I fully understand the desire and want to support the growth and the development of wings and the facility there, but just purely looking at it on a standpoint of the variance request and the 5 criteria, and it's going to be challenging for me to approve.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would echo what has already been said, so I'm not going to go through and repeat that. Just looking from a business perspective, I understand exactly what you're trying to do. You have your branding that you're trying to bring. The sign would, especially with traffic coming from the north, is giving that visibility on Cedar Avenue there, and what you're trying to accomplish. And I think by everything that I've heard here this evening, this route in terms of a variance is probably not the avenue for moving forward on that, but with Alex's explanation that there is an avenue to look at and how to bring about some common ground between what you'd like and what the city is looking at wanting to do also, so appreciate that. So with that said, yep. With that said, we have 2 ways of going tonight. There's either to deny, there's a recommendation, or for approval. So what is the pleasure of the commission?
Do you want someone to just give a motion?
Yep, please.
Mr. Chair, I move we recommend denial of a variance to allow a 20-foot tall sign where 8 foot is the maximum height permitted.
Could I have a second? Brought forward by Commissioner Schindler and seconded by Commissioner Sandell. All in favor of a denial indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye, and nay for this. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move we recommend denial of a variance to allow an 80 square foot sign where 60 square foot is the maximum size permitted.
Second.
Recommended by Commissioner Schindler and seconded by Commissioner Sandell. All in favor indicate by saying aye for denial.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes.
So with the motion, the commission does need to state on the record the reasons for denial. You had a discussion, but you now have
now
the
we have
motion,
to
the
each do
action.
it.
and
Okay.
You need to state the reasons for the denial.
Do we have to do so expressly, or can we refer to the draft findings in the staff report?
Or read it, just so it's on the record, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
And if the member that made the motion, she could certainly, or, no, Mr. Schindler did, he could state it, and each person can concur.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, the findings, the requirements that must be met, special conditions exist which are particular to the land, structure, building involved, and which are not applicable to other land, structures, and buildings of the same district. It does not meet that, in my opinion.
I concur.
All right. There are no special conditions which have a nexus to the sign height or size. The proposed alteration of 147th Street West by the city provided for better site visibility due to the removal of the berm, improved site access and sign visibility. 147th Street West will remain a 30-mile-per-hour roadway, and drivers' ability to view the sign may be diminished by the increased height rather than improved. B, the special conditions and circumstances do not result from actions of the applicant. There are no special provisions that have a nexus to sign height or size. C, a literal interpretation of the provisions of these regulations would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district and the terms of these sign regulations. There are no signs of this size or height within the PD 290 Zone 3 area. This area is intended for professional offices and underlying zoning and limited business, which allows for monument-style signs at the maximum height of 8 feet tall and 60 square feet. All other signs within this sub-district appear to meet those requirements. And D, the granting the variance requested would not confer on the applicant any special privilege for the use not common to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. And the granting of this variance would confer an advantage to the applicant over all other properties in the PD 290 subzone 3 area. The intent of the underlying limited business sign ordinance is to allow smaller monument signs due to the high visibility of the multi-story office structures. Allowing additional sign height and area would also convey advantage over neighboring properties and other subzones, as the LB zone allows for larger wall signage than other zones and is typically more visible from a greater distance due to the height of the buildings. And E, the proposed use of the property shall have an appearance that will not have an adverse effect upon adjacent properties, and there will be no deterrence to development of vacant land. The proposed sign could be interpreted as an advantage to the applicant, which would have an adverse effect upon adjacent properties. The improvement from the existing sign to a newer, more modern design may be seen as beneficial. The additional size and height could also be interpreted as a negative effect due to it being out of character with the surrounding district.
Thank you, Commissioner Schindler. Commissioner Sindel, your comments?
I concur.
Concur. Commissioner Mahold?
I concur. With just one comment with respect to the subparagraph D. You know, it is one of those things where there is the larger signage kind of on the top level, but that doesn't really help at street level. Kind of given the size of the buildings and the size of the campus, I'm not sure that. So I concur overall, but that's just one comment with respect to subparagraph D.
Okay. Commissioner Purwood?
Yeah, I concur with the reasons for denial of the request that stated.
Okay. Thank you, each of the commissioners, and I would echo that again in the fact that I concur with what the findings were. So, thank you. We will move on to item 5B. That is sign ordinance amendment. And that is also Alex Sharp.
Sorry.
So, it's going to be a sign evening this evening. So this evening, we are bringing forward, as I was, I don't want to say corrected, but I was told this is not necessarily a correction of errors, but there are some pieces where we can make code perhaps a little bit better in the sign ordinance, similar to some of the recommendations the Planning Commission just provided as well. So sign ordinance is not actually required to go before Planning Commission. However, staff has always brought sign ordinance amendments when they were substantive before the Planning Commission for their review and recommendation. There are 3 different issues that we were trying to identify as part of the sign ordinance amendment. I'm going to go through the issues first, identify the existing code, and then state basically an intent while the actual draft language is drafted by the city attorney, and we go back and forth on where things need to be at so we can land on what the ordinance that we're seeking is. What we're sharing and seeking the recommendation from the Planning Commission on this evening is the intent of where we're trying to get. So the first is on multi-story buildings, and that applies to buildings like wings, where in all zoning districts, no signs attached to the building, temporary or permanent, shall be permitted above the first floor except for the following, and it's on the buildings of 4 stories or more. Where this comes into to being problematic is that there are a number of buildings within the city of Apple Valley that are 2 and 3 stories. And at this time, there is no way for staff to approve a sign on a 3rd story. It must be on the 1st floor. You'll see examples of this. They do happen. They were from times past, but this is where staff has identified this issue and wants to bring forward a code amendment to make this so that we don't have to make interpretations. The intent of the proposed ordinance will be on multi-story buildings to allow signage to be on the uppermost story of the building and then prohibit signage from being placed on, say, floors 2 and 3 or 3 and 4. Even if you are a tenant on floor 3, we would seek for a common sign band on that top floor, uppermost story of the building. Secondarily to that, finding a way to allow some pedestrian level signage for particularly buildings with multiple entrances so that you know I'm supposed to enter this side of the building or this side of the building for this multi-tenant type building, because oftentimes there are more than one entrance, or you wish to be able to direct a primary entrance for a specific user. The second piece kind of relates to that, and it gets into directional signage and our number and maximum of it. However, there is also the concern that has been expressed. So first, let's go over the text. And right now, our current code allows you to have directional signage at a maximum of 2 square feet and a maximum number of 4 per site. Then additionally, not on this section, though, apologies. Got ahead of myself. The directional sign, what we're seeking to do, or what we've heard from our recent developments, is that this can be very, very difficult for our larger industrial users in particular, but even users such as Menard, where they're seeking to direct customers. These signs are not intended to be seen off the site. They are in an area that they can't be seen from off-site, and they're trying to direct truck traffic, deliveries, or people to the correct locations. And particularly in the larger truck traffic sites, when they're in these larger trucks, they cannot see a sign at 2 square feet. It's too small for them, is what has been reported. So the intent from the change would be to go from 2 to 6 square feet. I did survey a number of different cities, somewhere between 2 and 10 square feet, with us being the smallest at 2. That feedback coming back was that from multiple sign contractors as well, that I sought, if you were writing code, what would you want? And they're always going to go bigger is better. Many of them said the minimum size would be 8. Several said 10. I think because we are making a change from 2 to 8, let's see what this looks like. If this starts working for our applicants, then we've got something that works, and we didn't exceed by a huge amount. So it's attempting to work with our businesses and move things forward without going to the maximum size that I saw, which was 12. There's also a provision that we are looking to add that for those signs that are not at all visible from off-site or so far distant that they're not intended to be visible from an off-site, we need to work on some of that language and see if there's a way that we can not limit that total number of signs. When you're at 4 and you have a large acre parcel, 20 acres, 15 acres parcel, and you're trying to navigate for trucks, you're going to have a lot of those interior signs. The example right now being Frito-Lay, that has most recently come forward with that. Their entire interior lot is screened. You cannot see into it, and they have sought to place a large number of signs to direct their drivers. Most of the signs cannot even be seen from off-site. There's no way physically possible. Some you can start seeing at different angles as you're approaching from higher vantage points, and that is where we're trying to get at that intended. The actual language needs to be crafted very carefully, so we do know that that is going to be a challenging part of this, but we are going to move in that correct direction of trying to make it where we aren't limiting signs that are not intended for the advertising purposes of the business and more for the safety of their drivers and users. And then the final piece where I didn't actually fully get ahead of myself is that our directional signage right now has a provision in it that requires the sign to bear no advertising. And unfortunately, that is not meeting the content neutrality findings that fell down from a Supreme Court case from a number of years ago. So while we're in making changes to this, we should make changes that bring us in alignment with a Supreme Court case. The final one, I was wondering if any of you were ever going to catch me on the last 2 variances we brought forward. I copied directly from code, and unfortunately, it states that you must meet provisions either A or B. and then immediately goes into 1 and 2. So staff is proposing, and at the city attorney's behest, that we switch that to a 1 and 2 rather than an A and B. With that, I'd open it up for any questions. We are more than willing to take any suggestions or other recommendations, but this was kind of seen as we can bring this forward, show we've got multiple applicants, including our new health partners facility at that multi-story, and that kicked off a couple of other changes.
Well, looks like, Alex, that the timing of this is very pertinent, and I just drove by the Frito-Lay site today, and coming in the back side there, that there's a lot of trucks going to be moving around on that site, and where they would need that extra. And like you said, it's the way it's screened, it's very little of the internal part of the site where the truck traffic is visible by the public. So, and I think the area that we're looking at starting with is appropriate too. You're talking 8 feet.
8 square feet for directional signage.
Directional signage.
And that pedestrian level signage that I don't know that we have a direct term for yet for that first floor of the building that's meant to direct the people, and once they're on the site, to visit that multi-story building so that they know which entrance to use.
Okay.
That's where we're kind of starting with, is that 8 foot. That seems to be a good middle ground based upon the 6, 7 codes I took a look at.
Yeah, yeah. Commissioners? Commissioner Schindler?
I'm comfortable with everything in here. So I think it gives some of it's good because it actually makes sense now. And then otherwise, I think 2 feet is probably pretty small.
Anybody else have comments for Alex? Looks like you're going in the right direction, Alex.
Excellent.
Yep, thank you. Do you have,
Do we want a recommended action, I would assume?
excuse me,
Mr. Chair, I move we recommend approval of the proposed amendments to the sign ordinance, subject to preparation of the draft ordinance amended by the city attorney.
Second.
that was brought forward by Commissioner Schindler and seconded by Commissioner Sandell. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. That passes. Moves forward. The next item is item 6A, other business, where we have 2 items, review of the upcoming schedule and then looking at our new schedule for 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Before you tonight, there's a memo in your packet that indicates the next upcoming meeting for December 6th, same time. We also have that meeting of Wednesday, December 20th. I know that's getting into the latter part of December, the holiday season. My experience is along in the tooth planner, we typically get some commission members that would like to take off early or are traveling. So if we decide we're going to either hold or not hold that meeting, we'll notify you as soon as possible, give you enough time to be flexible with your own personal schedules. But if you're not able to attend that meeting, please, by all means, let Brianna or myself know or any of our staff members know. We just want to make sure if we do host a meeting that week of the 20th, that we at least have a quorum. Our council meetings are, again, notified or noticed as just November 21st and followed by December 14th.
Okay. And then the next item is item 6B.
Thank you. So if you look on your memo packet number 3A, about middle of the page, we have 2 meetings in June, at June 5th of 2024 and one for June 19th, 2024. You may have been notified that June 19th is actually Juneteenth national holiday, which we also recognize as a city day off holiday as well. So we would prefer, we'd like to keep those 2 meetings in that June because those do get a little busy around the summer months. So we would offer, would you prefer a Tuesday, June 18th, or a Thursday, June 20th?
personally, I'm flexible either direction, but
No
I don't know.
preference.
No preference.
No preference.
No preference.
I think you have a very flexible
All right.
commission.
Staff would prefer the 18th because then we can get you guys out of the way. We can get out and party afterwards and not worry about work the next day. How about that?
Very well.
All right.
18th.
So we're gonna do Tuesday, 6/18, if that's okay.
Sure you don't want the day to recover?
No. We always need those. Thank you. And that's it for staff.
All right, thank you.
Move we adjourn?
Second?
Brought forward by Commissioner Schindler and seconded by Commissioner Sandell. All in favor of closing the meeting, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So moved.